A goal is just a good idea, but a commitment is defined one way and one way only, by the result. Hey everyone, it is John Cheplack coming to you about 5:45 a.m. in the airport after a great Thanksgiving. I hope yours was wonderful, and I'm inspired because I love going out to the island and do some work with my longtime coach, who has been a guide, mentor for me for, about 8.5 years, and also the co-author of my book. And so the one thing that I always want to remind you is that we never arrive. You've got to be a lifelong learner. And this is such a great time to really invest in that. I'm in the airport, so we're going to hear all kinds of things in the background. Anyways, with that said, you've got to be a lifelong learner. And so what I want to do is go to the next step. The first thing we talked about was the big why. The big why, and how that's actually getting in the way. And what I want you to do is just really simplify things so that we don't get into overwhelm. So what's the one thing that hasn't happened in your personal life that a change, a choice, or greater production this year is going to give to you? Okay. And then the second thing, though, that we have to do to be able to continue with momentum, to get in this motion for 2018, finish 2017 strong, is we've got to look back, forward, and in the now, and take personal responsibility for everything. We've got to own every single experience. And what I mean is, like, if someone rear ends you at a stop sign, the question is this: Did I create that situation for me? Yes, you did. The law says, man law says, it's the other person's fault. They rear-ended you. But ultimate personal responsibility is saying, you know what? I'm responsible. I was there. The third piece, the next step in the process, that now that we've looked at, okay, what's my one thing? Okay, I'm going to take personal responsibility on every experience that I have in my life and grow from it and learn from it. The third thing is commitment. You've got to make a commitment. Let me define what a commitment is. Number one, a commitment's defined one way and one way only: by the result. By the result, okay? And there are three elements to a commitment. Number one, it's specific. Number two, it's measurable. And number three, it's actionable. So what has to happen is you've got to be crystal clear on that commitment that you're making, okay? It's got to have a deadline. And when we look into the measurable aspects of it, who's going to check in? I hear people say, well, I'm going to hold myself accountable, or better yet, my significant other is going to hold myself accountable. Good luck on that one. So, specific, measurable, actionable. You've got to declare it. You got to have guts. Put it out there. See, none of us want to be a liar. And so when we publicly declare it, okay, the likelihood increases. When we write it down, the likelihood increases. When we move away from goal, a goal is a cop-out. Think about the unconscious brain. I talk about it a lot. I got close. A goal is a good idea. See, the problem with commitment, the reason we don't commit to things, okay, is because we are so attached to the outcome. We don't want to be judged. And so one other piece I want to weave in there for you that are leaders, and for those of you that are being held accountable by someone, let me give you the right definition of accountability. Accountability is observing or noticing without judgment. Observing or noticing without judgment. So now we've got a specific actionable commitment. Okay, we've declared it. It has a deadline. Someone's going to check in with us. We're willing to be held accountable by someone that observes and notices without judgment. Someone who doesn't say, why did you do it? Someone who works with us, or if we're leading someone else, we say, what did you notice? What did you experience? What did you learn about yourself by not taking the action? Because self-discovery is the highest form of human persuasion. Self-discovery is the number one way to get us into action, to make a change, okay? We've got to attach now to the process and detach from the outcome. Well, that doesn't make sense, John, because I have this big plan and this big number, and I'm in the numbers business. Sure, but here's the piece you got to understand, is it overwhelms you. Business plans go in the drawer. People abandon them. How come? Because the amygdala, that thing in our brain that's fight or flight, says that's so overwhelming, we abandon it. Well, what we've got to do is have little micro commitments, very short deadlines. I have a leader I work with that says, you know what, we're doing micro commitments on the daily. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you do accountability, some may be saying that's micromanagement. And I'm the last guy that wants to be micromanaged, the last guy that wants to micromanage people. There is a point where you need to, when you're moving someone to that point of choice, you allow them to really make that decision to, be coached up or coached out when you tighten the reins down, but you just keep checking in, okay? And so what are some other foundational pieces that you really need to look at to have this commitment? And let me digress for a minute. By the way, everyone's committed. Everyone's a committed human being. And let me define that for you. By what's showing up. By what's showing up. If you're in the real estate business and you wanted to close 150 transactions this year with your team, or 500 transactions a year, let's go with the 150, and you closed 100, you weren't committed to the 150. And that's okay. You were committed to the 100. See, that's what I want you to look at too. Whatever's showing up is what I'm committed to by the result. Instead of this, you got close. And it's important to acknowledge and have some self-appreciation. And again, not judge it. Recognize that, you know what, I did do these action steps. Here's what I didn't do. Here's what I could have done differently. Here's what I'm going to recommit to. Okay? So with that said, everyone's committed. The challenge is if something is showing up this year, if something's showing up in your life right now, in my life, I've put a lot of declarations out there, and something different showing up, I know I'm more committed to that. And typically it's the path of least resistance. It's the path of least resistance. Here's the final piece that you got to have to keep commitments: boundaries. Boundaries. And, you'll hear me talk a lot about people, places, and things. And I'm not saying dismiss people. I don't care where anyone is at in their fitness, in their business, in their personal relationships, what kind of parent they were, whether they're addicted to drugs and alcohol or porn or food or whatever it is. I care about one thing: the desire to change. The desire to change. That's the critical piece. And I know right out of the gates if someone's committed to it based on the boundaries and attachments. I'm clear on where I want to go. If someone wants to change, if someone has a desire to move, I call it escape and arrival. Learned that one from Frank Kern. He talks about everyone wants to escape the place we're in and arrive somewhere else. I'm not talking the escape from escaping, our problems into drugs and alcohol or bad habits. I'm talking about we want to move from a less than desirable place to a more desirable place. That's what I care about. I don't care. I don't care if you weigh 350 and 350 still obese or out of shape. I don't care. It's a commitment. It's moving in the right direction. That's what I want you to keep in mind too. So now when we make a commitment, we've got to stay pointed in the right direction, because if you're pointed in the right direction, you're gonna fall. I fail miserably on a daily basis, but you're going to fall forward. When you're pointed in the wrong direction, when you've got the wrong people around you, you're going to the wrong places and you're doing the wrong things. And wrong's kind of judgmental as it is. Here's what I'd say. If you're doing the things, if you're around the people that aren't going to contribute to where you're going, well, John, there you are. You're saying that, if someone's not as good as me or as accomplished. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people that are pointed in the right direction, no matter where they're at, we can gain momentum, we can gain strength, we can gain inspiration, power from other people. By the way, know this: you can't get motivation from anyone. That's from you. So here's what I want to challenge you to do, is this: reassess your commitments. What are you really, truly committed to? Declare it to someone. Have a deadline, okay? Have a deadline. Make some tough decisions of the people, places, and things that are surrounding you. Because if they're negative, okay, it's really, really simple. You're going to get the result that's most like what you're surrounded by. It's simple. It's really, really simple. But if you're around people that understand commitment, if you're around people that are willing to take personal responsibility, if you're around people that understand, little micro commitments, one thing that, by the way, fills your heart. We can fill our garages, we can fill our closets, and we can fill our bank accounts, and money is an important vehicle in what we do, but what I know is this: money's not going to fill the tank. Okay, money is a vehicle. The work that we do are vehicles to experience who we really are or who we really desire to be. And when you can bridge that gap, as a leader, you're going to help people. Okay, you're going to help people get to where they want to get. Sitting down and grinding people over numbers, yeah, you need to check in with people on numbers, but you've got to tie it to something emotional. Otherwise, there's going to be friction in between the thought and the action they need to take. There's got to be an emotional trigger tied to it. So, what's one thing you haven't experienced that a changed choice or greater production is going to give to you? Go back and look at everything that you haven't owned. If you're still blaming, criticizing, complaining, anything, your childhood, guess what? Everyone's had a childhood issue. Someone cheated on you. Well, guess what? There's people that have had people cheat on them, and they came through in shining colors. I think you get the point. We've all been through our stuff. And we get to decide, is that going to be my story that I fall back on and use as an excuse? Or is that going to be my history that's part of shaping me in my commitment and going forward to have the happiness and freedom I desire? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a commitment. And it's going to be a public declaration. It's going to be specific, measurable, actionable. And I'm going to have someone check in with me. And I'm going to have someone check in with me that understands that accountability is observing or noticing without judgment. And I'm going to reflect back so I can go forward. I'm going to be humble, transparent, and vulnerable, because that's where growth is. And I'm going to have those boundaries. And to create those boundaries, I've got to look at what I'm attached to. People, places, and things. And remember this, it's just one tiny choice that can change everything. One tiny choice that can change everything. One tiny commitment that you keep and build on it. So I've got to catch a flight. Aloha. I'll catch up with you guys from some cool spots on the island. Happy holidays.